This is the Mojo, the Meaning of Life and Business podcast, where life and business intersect. Hosted by Jennifer Glass, CEO of Business Growth Strategies International and BGSI Coaching. We are dedicated to your success. Hello and welcome to another episode of Mojo, the Meaning of Life and Business. On our program today, we're going to be talking about a couple of current events, but in the perspective of really the meaning of life. Over the last several weeks, there have been a lot of things that have been going on. In Washington, D.C., there's been so much craziness going on, whether it's the vacating the office of the Speaker of the House, or it is the fighting in Washington because we can't go with what the other side wants because, oh my gosh, what are we going to do if the other side gets a win? And going from there. And then we have the events that happened in Israel, where terrorists came in, abducted innocent people, murdered people, and many other atrocities going on in the state of Israel. As of the date of this recording, the conflict in Israel is very much still happening. It just started over this weekend. And as of the date of this recording, there is also no clear Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C., leading to us not knowing exactly what is happening in terms of the political aspects of what we need to do in our country. But let me ask you this, and I'm going to wax philosophical for a little bit as we look at where we are in this conversation. Part of being an adult means that we have to understand what it means to have an understanding of other people. It is compassion for other people. It is belief that we can find a way to work together and a way that we can compromise to get certain things done. We also were taught back in preschool that we have to play nicely with other people, that we have to do more in terms of us saying we're going to be living a better life than what the animals are doing. There's a concept in Hebrew, in Judaism, called Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam means fixing the world. When we can actually go about fixing the world and we can be paying attention to leaving it in a better position than we found it, we understand what the meaning of life actually comes into being. The meaning of life, as I discussed several times before on this show, is really all about what can we do that is going to leave the world in a better place for the next generations? What can we possibly be doing right now that is going to shift the conversation away from the negativity into the positive? Last year, a group of my friends and I had a speaking engagement in New York City where we were talking about positivity because there was so much negativity going on back then. Unfortunately, the negativity did not end, and the negativity is still very much a part of everyday life in this country. If you watch the news, it's always full of people killing people. It's full of people pushing people onto subway tracks, people shooting people, innocent bystanders, people who are just walking on the street and being stabbed, people who are being robbed, people who are being abducted, people who are being tortured simply for who they are and their beliefs. We need to understand what it means to really be going back and looking at what is it that we're really trying to do? Where are we trying to go on this planet? And what are we trying to do in this life? The problem is that we've gotten so used to the value of human life being as close to zero as possible in so many different ways. But yet there's also the whole fight that abortion should be illegal. If human life is really sacrosanct and we believe that we cannot terminate a fetus because it is a human life, then saying our thoughts and prayers are not an appropriate solution anymore to the crime and to the terrorism that exists in this world. When Russia invaded Ukraine, we stood up as a world against the Russian aggression. When other nations have stepped in, we haven't always done the same thing. What is the difference between what Russia did to Ukraine and what other nations have done at the same token? The world is very different from the world of the early 20th century. In the 1930s, when Germany started attacking many other nations, America stood back and waited. It was not in our best interest to get involved in a conflict that was in Europe. Over the course of the following decades, there were many other conflicts where America did get involved in what we did in the world situations, whether it was in Vietnam, it was in Korea, it was in Kuwait, it was in any other area in the world in the 20th century. America got involved. America has gotten involved at times in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We've had various accords, including the Abrahamic Accords that just happened not that long ago, only a few years ago, that brought peace between Israel and some of her neighbors. However, Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah have continued being a thorn in the side of Israel. We understand that Hamas and Hezbollah are fighting for their people. We understand that there is a reason that they feel pained, that they are aggrieved. However, that is still no answer and no reason to be fighting the way that you are fighting. If you go back and you look at the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, Nelson Mandela's group did not really fight. Mahatma Gandhi did not fight in India. There's ways that you can still have civil disobedience without violence to make your points heard and known. But when you resort to violence, it is not the answer. It shows that we are going back to the value of human life is zero, or as close to zero as possible. You look at the people that have guns and that are out there and they are shooting innocent people. And we say guns don't kill people, people kill people. But those people who are getting the weapons are very often getting them illegally. And sometimes they're getting them legally, but they're going above and beyond what any reasonable person really needs to have. I believe our Constitution says that we have the right to bear arms. We have a right to own weapons. However, the Constitution never imagined us owning 100 plus weapons, high capacity magazines. Never imagined us stocking up what the military and the police would need to be having in order to deal with conflict. As individuals, that is not something that we really ever needed. Our Constitution, therefore, when it comes down to where we are, is very clear in our right to own weapons. But again, we need to step in and have reasonable gun control. We need to step in and remind people that life is valuable. We need to step in and reiterate the lessons that your neighbor is not your enemy. We keep teaching the next generation to hate other people. Hate is not an innate emotion. Hate is a learned emotion. Hate is based on fear. Fear, again, is based on ignorance or based on hatred that has been passed on by the past generations. If we look beyond what exactly it is that is making us different, we can find so many more commonalities between all of us that really can show where exactly we are and what it is that we all are trying to ultimately do in the pursuit of life. If we sit down and we listen to what the other side is saying, very often we can find the common ground that we can build a relationship on. At the end of the day, as the famous saying goes, if you cut me, do I not bleed? Do I not put on pants one leg at a time? We're all the same. White, black, doesn't matter. Gay, straight, doesn't matter. Israeli, Palestinian, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when it comes down to what it is that we are trying to do, we need to do better. We need to remember exactly what it is that we were destined to do. We weren't destined to come on this planet and cause conflict. I don't believe that a merciful God would create mankind to come and be violent. God gave us dominion over the animals because he gave it to us for food, but he did not give us dominion over people. Yes, there's the royal families that have been ruling throughout history. However, those rulers, at the end of the day, still have their own rulers. If you look at the coronation of King Charles, he, just like his predecessors, had a religious coronation. It wasn't just a ceremony where he became king. It was a ceremony where he affirmed that he was still subservient to God. As the head of the English church, that is exactly what it is. All rulers, at the end of the day, are still subservient to a God. Whether you believe in one or not, it is not just man that is running the show. There's a greater force, whether it's nature, it is a God, whatever your belief may be. When it comes down to where we are, we really need to be clear. We need to understand how we can keep moving forward. My hope is that as the days and weeks go by, that the conflict overseas is going to resolve itself. Unfortunately, all those who have already been murdered and injured will not be undone. But we can release the hostages. We can say that there's opportunity for us to do better. We can say that there are adults in the room that are there to really be guiding us to figure out exactly what it is that we need to be doing. If we don't, we are no better than the animals that we have dominion over. However, that does not mean that we have dominion over ourselves and other people. We can only control what we do. You can control you. I can control me. As parents, we try and teach our children what we need to teach them so that they can become productive members of society as adults. The fear that we are teaching our children And the hatred that we are teaching our children needs to be replaced. We need to replace love instead of hate. Love is an innate emotion. We know who our parents are by the sound of their voice. We are soothed by the sounds of our parents' voices as babies. Growing up, similarly, we are soothed by our parents. Our parents are there to help us continue to learn. If we replace the hatred, if we replace the fear, then we can be better. We don't have to turn around and be mean. We don't have to turn around and be violent. We do, though, have to turn around and say no more. We cannot accept any more thoughts and prayers or with X people. We cannot say anything of the sort that is going to be changing the way that we operate. But we can do better. On that note, this has been another episode of Mojo, the meaning of life and business. And until next time, here's to your success. This has been another episode of Mojo, the meaning of life and business podcast. If you like what you heard, please consider leaving us a review, liking us, or reaching out to us. You can contact us at bgsicoaching.com and let us know what you think. Thanks so much again for listening.